Alright, so my name is Nettles, and today I'm going to teach you a little bit about GMOs, or genetically modified crops. So, how many times a week would you say that you consume anything genetically modified?
Like every day of your life.
Okay, very good. So, how many of you actually know what a genetically modified crop is? There we go. Well, according to the non-GMO product, GMOs are plants or animals that have been genetically engineered with DNA from bacteria, viruses, or other plants and animals. GMOs are consumed daily by 65% of Americans, but just because we use these techniques doesn't mean it's exactly the most safe thing to be doing. What kinds of effects do GMOs have on agriculture? Almost 80% of all genetically modified crops today are created to have a high herbicide tolerance to keep them so that bugs don't get in and ruin harvest and everything like that. Since these new crops have been introduced, we're now using 15 times the amount of herbicides that we've ever used before. Now agriculture is seeing things like super weeds and super bugs that are super tolerant to anything you can really throw at them, to the point where we actually have to use something that we use in Vietnam called Agent Orange to actually make sure that bugs don't touch our crops anymore. Now imagine these very same foods you're putting into your body. What is it actually doing to you? Many health issues have increased since the introduction of GMOs in 1996. Food allergies rose at an alarming rate, and not to mention the chemicals being sprayed on your foods carry into your body when you ingest them. So let's just keep on eating them, right? So you're walking through the grocery store and you choose the non-fat milk rather than the whole milk, the fresh veggies instead of the canned, or you pick the Special K instead of the Lucky Charms. But right next to them, there was the same box or jug or vegetable label, except with a visibly clear label saying no GMOs. Which would you choose? In over 60 countries, GMO foods are clearly labeled in grocery stores, America being one of them that doesn't do that. And in most of these countries, GMOs are actually prohibited completely from all uses in any food product. So the fact that America does it is a little bit strange. Monsanto should not have to vouchsafe the safety of biotech food. Our interest is in selling as much of it as possible. Assuring its safety is the FDA's job, says Philip Engel, Monsanto's Director of Corporate Communications, which is a little bit rash if you ask me. But just for some insight, the FDA then states that ultimately it's the food producer who is responsible for assuring safety. So who's really regulating what in that aspect? Moving forward on to my next point. Imagine the fact that the FDA states no responsibility, or they're the producer of these GMOs, and we are human. Imagine what they're feeding to our agriculture. One massive issue is the fact that organic farmers are getting cross-pollination, unfortunately, from other GMO farmers, because the seeds that can travel through the air, and if they're in close proximity, they can actually damage entire crop yields for organic farmers, which is a huge thing considering you could spend your entire year trying to yield all your acreage of corn, and then next thing you know, you test your corn before it goes out to be tested for organic, and the FDA passes it as inorganic because it has been polluted with GMO corn. But according to the non-GMO report, 25% or more of organic feed corn available is GMO contaminated, even that used by major organic dairy producers. And about 6% of organic and conventional soybean feed also contains GMOs, unfortunately. So you really almost can never get away from them unless you're actually growing your own foods. So, not to mention the effects of the harsh herbicides used on these plants. The usage of chemicals is so detrimental to the environment due to runoff, improper disposal, soil saturation, and mutation of weeds and bugs, like I touched on before, are becoming more and more tolerant to them. As stated by IRT, Monsanto, for example, sells Roundup-ready crops designed to survive pretty much anything you can throw at them, and their Roundup herbicide that they generate for their crops. On to my next point, what are we actually consuming when we're taking in these GMOs? Chances are, if you go out to eat, you're consuming GMOs in one way or another. Since the use of them began in 1996, the percentage of Americans with 3 or more chronic illnesses jumped from 7% to 13% in just 9 years, says the IRT. They have been known to cause major food allergies, reproductive and digestive problems, and have been linked with GMOs as well, that all of these are tied together. Not to mention the pesticides they spray all over these plants do leave residues. So to stay safe about like eating your vegetables or when you buy your fruits from the store, normally you just wash them and you can like wipe them with a rag, and you get that waxy kind of texture that comes off them, and that keeps them preserved. But also in that waxy texture, that's normally done like at the plants where the foods are distributed. So they do have some of these chemicals and things that they're putting onto them. So what you can do is wash your vegetables and your fruits in baking soda, and it actually removes it. Or you can fill up your sink with cold water, put about a half cup of white vinegar in there, and leave it for about 10 minutes, and that'll rid it of pretty much anything that can be on the surface as well without damaging anything that you're eating. So tonight I've discussed with you all about GMOs and what they are, how they affect agriculture, how they affect your body, and hopefully I didn't bore you all to death, and you will next time be a little bit more picky about what you eat.